Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 88 of Storyteller Conclave. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I am Sarah.
And I'm Rob.
How we doing, Rob?
I'm
Better
okay.
not ask that question, huh?
No.
Probably.
Yeah.
With what's currently happening in American politics. And
Happy
stuff.
New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year,
Happy
everybody.
New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's a new year. I had a mimosa.
I had a PB&J.
You did.
It was nice.
We're not talking about the food.
And we're not talking about the food.
So, although dinner was good.
Dinner was really good.
Dinner was good.
Good friendship and good. We're gonna focus on that for right now.
Good friendship, good conversation, and we're gonna go that direction.
And we're gonna take a little trip down memory road. I think tonight.
Yeah. Although funny thing had happened at dinner related to tonight's discussion too. So you got a late Christmas present.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Late Yule present for me today.
Yes.
A friend of ours got custom D20s for us. Custom gem cut D20s.
Yes.
Mine's amethyst. Yours look like jade?
Yes. No, it's not jade. It's something else.
But it's green.
It's green. Yeah.
Malachite maybe something. I don't know, but it's green.
Yes.
But they're really nice engraved things on there, and the custom 1 and 20 on them.
Yes. The 20 is for both of us is yeet.
Is yeet.
Which I had seen these dice get put out before, and I pointed it out like months and months ago, so she must have caught on to that. And then your one is different than mine.
Mine I cannot say. Because
it messes up on...
it may get our podcast flagged as inappropriate.
Yeah, but
mine is the... begins with an F.
Yes. Mine, on the other hand, is the Northwestern version of that, which is Ope. Which I love. I absolutely love. I think it's fantastic, and I will be rolling that die at some point.
That's just great,
so.
Yeah. No,
but yeah, tonight is about the stuff that makes tabletop gaming. The tools that we use, the things that we started with, and what's come out. Because we haven't been able to play with physical things, but so many things make it gaming, and that's what's made it challenging this last year.
I've been talking a lot about how we're kind of living in the golden age of role playing right now.
We so are,
where it's really hit the mainstream, and because it's become mainstream, there's a lot of community producing new stuff for it, new games, new media. It's all over YouTube, it's all over Twitter and Instagram, and you can very easily find all this stuff. It's come kind of up out of the basement and into the limelight. And along with that, though, is a lot of new gaming peripherals.
So much so,
and
some old ones that have just been given new life,
dusted off, and improved upon. Yeah.
I mean, the whole concept of when gaming came around originally, I remember having the discussion about original D&D dice didn't have painted in numbers. You had to fill it in yourself.
The ones out of the box.
Yeah, the original. Yeah. I never got a set of those, but I knew the tales of grabbing your crayons and filling in the cracks, because you didn't have it. But now you can get pretty much dice made out of anything. Mm-hmm. You can get them, you can get gem cut, glass cut, metal that are hollow, that are just, 3D printed.
Yeah.
I saw titanium dice.
Oh, yeah.
I know friends who gifted each other silver dice.
Oh, geez.
For their 25th gaming anniversary.
Uh-huh.
But I mean, you could make your own at home.
Yeah.
There's kits to make your own at home. I mean, it's amazing. But where we started was so different.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
even then, it was better than the original start point back in the 60s and 70s.
Man, and I remember having to try to hunt down my first set of dice too.
Mm-hmm.
This is back when I was just starting to get into Palladium Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There's your turtle reference, everybody.
Yeah.
I think we had to go to the one comic shop in town that actually had any role playing stuff, and they had a little shelf off in the corner.
Yeah.
Where they had 5 D&D books and 3 sets of dice.
Yeah.
And
I'm trying to remember where I picked up my first dice when I got Palladium.
Most people pilfered their board games back in the day, but that's just where you got D6.
That's where you got D6s.
Yeah,
and I remember doing that. But I think my first full set of dice of D20, D8, D12, D6, D10s. I think my first set came from a gaming shop that was in Westland that is no longer there. That had it strangely had a decent selection of games.
Yeah, okay.
And some dice, not a lot. And they were expensive. It was very odd. And then the second time I went out to the east side to a gaming shop there and got stuff with my second set of dice. But after that, gaming stores just started showing up all over the place.
Yeah.
And when you found really cool dice, you picked them up because you didn't know if you'd see them again.
I think Magic the Gathering kind of opened the door for a lot of that. Because I think like
Magic the Gathering, Pokemon.
Pokemon and Magic the Gathering. I think kind of at the same time there. I think they opened the doors for a lot of that because the comic shops were carrying the Magic cards, and the Magic crowd brought the D&D in.
Yeah,
and I think you saw it kind of hit a bit more of not mainstream like it is today.
Yeah.
But at least you could find it.
Well, then you also had your miniature shops, the places that were doing, like model airplanes the Army stuff, getting Warhammer stuff because it was kit-based.
Yep.
And then that kind of opened the door to allow gaming
miniatures for D&D and stuff like that. Ralpartha, big wall of Ralpartha computers.
And people needed paints and people needed things, so that kind of opened that gateway. So you had two very distinct worlds that were different. You had collectible cards and comic shops turning into gaming shops, and then you had these worlds of miniatures and RC now stepping into that realm and kind of colliding,
bleeding over into Warhammer, and then bleeding into D&D minis, and then started carrying the books along with them, so you one-stop shop your hobby.
Yeah,
and there was a and I know what you're saying is true because there was a friendly local gaming store, FLGS, as you'll sometimes see it written, that I would go to, Old Guard Hobbies. Now,
Old Guard, yeah.
Yeah, they're gone now, but they were, up in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, definitely. Because the place that I started, which doesn't exist anymore, I was lucky that I had a news, comic, and small bookshop literally around the corner from my house, and it was tiny.
Yeah.
But they would get newspapers from all over the world and stuff like that, and so a lot of people went in there. But just inside, they had a small gaming section. And I mean, like, it was maybe 3 feet wide and, magazine stack tall.
Oh, yeah.
But it had D&D and it had Palladium and it had other games there, and that was my first. And they had no peripherals. There was no dice or anything there. It was just the books. But it was great that they had that because it opened up a door. Because every day I would go and look at it again until I got the money, and then I bought it, and I was so freaking excited.
Yep.
But like all the shops that I remembered after that, one of them was like something Connection, Books Connection, I think it was. And that place was just a bookstore, but they had a decent amount of gaming stuff in it, and that was fantastic. And there were a couple out on the east side, and I'm trying to remember the names, and I'm terrible at it today. My brain's just not pulling them together, but there were a couple off of that were a decent drive for me, but they were more of the classic miniature shops that turned into Warhammer shops that turned into gaming shops.
Yeah. I think Old Guard was kind of one of those.
Yeah, Old Guard was, I think, definitely that, and it's just been neat to see how many of those have grown and are still doing okay.
Yeah.
I hope they're doing well during the pandemic, but it's really hard.
Yeah, moment of silence for the ones that didn't make it. I mean, Old Guard, I know, closed down a handful of years ago. It is now an adult novelties shop, which I think, hey, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Our FLGS, luckily, survived a fire.
And
moved into a bigger place.
God.
Oh, wasn't that scary?
Yeah, so short history lesson there, RIW was in the process of moving to a larger place. They had picked out the location, which wasn't far, and they were getting all their ducks in a row. And they had a number of both Magic the Gathering and Pokemon champions that came out of there because they would take them to tournaments and everything. Like they really, like the awards they had on their walls were amazing. And then I want to say it was about a month before the move.
Was it the restaurant next to them caught fire?
I think something burned through the wall and just ravaged the shop.
Yeah.
And they lost a lot of cards.
Yeah.
Which very, very limited stuff. And all their awards and tons of Warhammer stuff and books and board games were just gone. And it was a hell of a sad day.
12 Warhammer models destroyed in the fire. So $3,000 worth of damage.
What is it, 10,000 points worth of shit?
Not that I'm salty about that, but
yeah.
So let's dice bags.
Oh my god!
Now I know everybody's traditional there was a little discussion about this. Hulavu on one of our Patreons on Discord mentioned that he doesn't have a dice bag,
which blows my mind. The concept that you don't have a dice bag or something to carry your dice in, whether it's a vault, a carrier, something, a tin. Sure.
But there was some discussion about the obligatory Crown Royal Classic bag, right?
And I don't know if that's just like an East Coast thing or not. I'd be interested to find out.
No, I'm pretty sure it's universal, but in anywhere like Crown Royal is circulated. Obviously it's not worldwide, but I got to admit I've never had a Crown Royal bag.
What?
No, so I had a different bag. A friend that an ex of mine cheated on me with bought me an apology gift for his part in the whole thing.
Oh Lord.
It was a bottle of Captain Morgan private stock and came in a tall red velvet bag.
I remember those. I remember those bags.
And so I did not have a Crown Royal bag, but I did have a fancy alcohol bag.
Well, that is still thing, because I think that whole concept of that you had these de facto dice carriers that came with alcohol, and what was funny for me was it was a lot of kids getting the bags from their parents.
Right.
Early on, and it was just easy because it was accessible. Like, what are your parents going to do with a Crown Royal bag? Honestly, and now it's funny that they didn't used to do them in the bigger bottles, but now they do because people are using them.
Right, because there's demand for it. It's funny that Crown Royal changed their marketing and stuff like that because of gamers. I still
don't know why they haven't done a gamer box set for Crown Royal.
Oh, right.
For a Christmas box set that comes with dice.
Oh my god!
Could you imagine
a set of dice, a bottle of Crown Royal, and the bag?
Right. That has D&D's never going to support it, but come on.
They could never put D&D's name on it.
No.
But they could be for all of your gaming needs. And holy cow! Yes.
Yeah. For friendship. And I honestly think that at the end of this pandemic, that would be a fantastic time to bring it out. Bring people back together with a bit of Crown Royal, a bag, and some dice. Do it.
Exactly.
Exactly. That's it. We're gonna get with Crown Royal.
Yeah.
We're gonna have it branded for Storyteller Conclave.
I
think this is our idea. We're taking this one.
This is great.
We're taking this one to the bank.
What about your first books?
Palladium was my first book. Without a doubt, it was Robotech. My second purchased book was actually Rifts.
Okay.
And then after that, I acquired a lot of books through conventions.
Mm-hmm.
I got my AD&D books through conventions. I actually lost a bunch of my Robotech books because I gifted them to somebody for a period of time because they were running something, and then they moved.
Yeah.
So I think I lost 20 books to that move. Really, really good Robotech books all gone.
I had a bunch of BattleTech books, classic BattleTech books, like the original fossil ones, right? Yeah. And I gifted them to a friend at the time, and then that friend and I had a really bad falling out, and so I
had
will
the
never see those
tech
again.
manuals for a while.
Yeah, the tech manuals.
Yeah, I loved the tech manuals, just the tech manuals, and then I had I got my I remember buying brand new the 3.5 because I wanted the CD that was in it, and then 5th edition books, my 7th Sea books. I think all of my 7th Sea books came used through conventions because I couldn't find them anywhere else. Yeah. I would literally dig through the convention huckster boxes.
Oh, really?
Of used books and old books.
Yeah, sure.
And get them that way. And I'd pull those things out, stacks of players' guides to get them to friends and stuff because I wanted people to learn 7C. I loved it.
Knox says there's becoming a list of things in this episode that Sarah might still be salty about. I think the more you get to know me, buddy,
the salt was thick.
The saltier you understand me to be at all times.
Now, did you go to libraries to look at books?
No. Okay, so I did a little bit.
Okay.
So I had a brief stint where I played Shadowrun a little bit, and the library actually had a decent, believe it or not, a decent selection of Shadowrun books.
Nice.
They had the first Decker manual was in there.
Oh, nice.
Like the first edition one. And I don't remember what it was called. But I remember it had really cool like color, like 3D graphics in it and stuff like that.
I'll do what I can, Hulavu. I'll see if I can get that done.
Most of my books actually were I mean, I had a fair selection of Palladium books. But most of those, and then I started collecting White Wolf books.
Oh God, I totally forgot about my White Wolf stuff.
Yeah, but most of the stuff actually was just like from Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, see, I never bought a lot from Barnes and Noble. I did go to the library just recently. Funny enough, I was hanging out with my wife and a friend, and we were dropping off books. This is right at the beginning of the pandemic, so it's a little longer than I thought. And they went. She was going to go get a couple books, and so I walked over to the gaming section just to see what they had. And they happened to have a book that I was interested in looking at because of ship rules for 5th edition.
Oh yeah, okay.
It was in there, and I'm like, oh,
Ghost of Saltmarsh.
Yeah, and so I just started flipping through it to see what those rules were, and I'm like, hey, this is kind of cool. All
right. Yeah, but no, I picked up most of my stuff at Barnes and Noble because like Barnes and Noble, especially back in the day, would have just like one little shelf in the entire thing that was just jam packed with brand spanking new books, and so I mean I did my fair pickups of little things at Old Guard Hobbies and stuff like that, but I would say probably about 80% of my stuff came from between Palladium and White Wolf, all came from there. And then when Dungeons and Dragons 3rd edition came out, the Wizards of the Coast stores were a thing.
That's right. There was one at the mall.
There was one at Lakeside Mall.
There was one at 12 Oaks.
It was near where I was growing up, so I picked them up actually from there because that was the only place I could find them.
I forgot about the D20 craze that hit.
Yeah, huge D20 craze.
That's where
Everything
I picked up my
D20.
books.
Yeah.
I picked up my books there. That's right.
Yeah,
they were kind of neat stores. Like they were. It was interesting to have a gaming store that was that dedicated.
They were okay. They were niche, but they were I understand why they failed. Yeah. But at the same time, it was cool having them around.
Yeah. First mini.
Okay, so my parents.
Oh Lord.
Actually, back in the day, my mom has a bit of an artistic streak in her.
Okay.
And so when both my brother and I kind of grew up with artistic streaks of our own, she very much encouraged it.
Oh, nice.
And one of the things that they got me into early was plastercraft painting.
Nice.
And so I had my own set of acrylic paints and stuff like that for painting these large plaster busts and stuff like that. And I was no good at it. I mean, I was a kid, But I learned some cool techniques like buffing and stuff like that, like which would equate to like dry brushing, but on a larger scale and whatnot. And so then when I started playing BattleTech in high school, I started picking up those pewter miniatures from the mini store that I mentioned earlier, Old Guard, and those were my first minis, were my BattleTech minis, and it was just like painting the big plastercraft things, only smaller. After that, I had a very short stint where I played Crimson Skies, another FASA game. It was a miniatures combat game, only with biplanes, basically, prop planes. And I painted some of those minis, and then I think that's right about the time that 3rd edition D&D came out, and always enamored with the miniatures and the terrain and the table and stuff like that. I loved seeing the pictures of all of that, and so instantly, the moment I started playing D&D, I tried to recreate that. And so I started buying the pewter minis from there.
Yeah, I remembered D&D minis, but I really never got into D&D minis until, I would say, 3.5.
Yeah.
BattleTech, definitely. I remember playing with BattleTech minis, and I remember wanting them. I wanted them so bad, but I could never find them. Like, I'd go into places, and they just wouldn't have them. Like, they wouldn't have any sets. They wouldn't have boxes for anything else. But I remember they were all part of the sets. I remember getting my first wizard from somebody. Like they had like one. They're like, "Oh yeah, you can have this one for your mini." I'm like, "Can I just keep this?" They're like, "Yeah, you can paint it too." And I'm like, "No, I don't know how to do that." So that thing remained unpainted and then got lost in all of the annals of the universe. But yeah, I remember that being the first mini that I had, but like never got to even use it.
Yeah.
But I so wanted a dungeon. Like I wanted to be able to build it out of the little stone pieces. And then I found out there was like this dungeon craft set that came with like 250 pieces for a dungeon. I was like, oh, I want that so bad.
Oh man, when what was that game? Hero Quest. When Hero Quest came on, it had the little cardboard bookshelves and stuff like that. Blew my mind.
Yeah.
And then fast forward a few years, Hearst Arts.
Yeah.
Hearst Arts plaster molds.
Hell yeah, they are awesome.
And by the way, if you haven't seen Hearst Arts, if you don't know what I'm talking about right now,
go
look it up. HIRST. Hearst Arts molds.
Yes.
Okay. They are silicone molds for making modular dungeon stuff.
Everything.
Perfectly to D&D scale.
Yeah.
And they've got all sorts of sets. Basically, if you basically just plaster cast these things and use them as building blocks.
Yeah, dental plaster works amazingly well because it's pretty damn strong after it hardens. You put a coating on it and it's done.
It's done.
I have a bunch of them because my buddy Steve has a ton of it, and we ended up doing 2 days worth of casting to get me a ton of pieces. And I have a bunch. I've shared it with you. You used it in some of your stuff. I'm shitty at painting. That's my problem, both in getting myself to do it and doing it.
Right.
But I'm so happy that I have it now. As an adult, I have a box of Hearst stone walls, and I'm like,
right.
I can be a child again.
But man, those were such goals. Yeah.
Yeah. Just it was those things that we aspired to, and now we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's different. There's so much. It's almost too much to reach for.
But at the same time, I think it's all very accessible, And I think the important thing to note, and this is what I have to keep reminding myself of, is you don't need any of this stuff.
No.
It's cool. Don't get me wrong. It's cool, and more power to you if you have it. But you do not need it with a capital N.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about how to accessorize.
Let's set the need to the side.
Yeah,
we're setting need to the side. Usually we say, okay, this is all you really need. These are the things we can get by with.
What's our dream shopping trip down the Rodeo Drive of gaming?
I'll flat out say it. I jumped onto a Kickstarter in regards to dice with a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, and I have shiny bronze, almost golden dice coming that are hollow, and they're they're 3D printed metal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they look incredible. I can't wait till they get here and I can roll those puppies because I've never had a set. It's always been something in the side of my head. So the moment that he said it, I was like, he's like, what do you want to order off the set? I'm like, I'll only do 50, 60, 70. I think it ended up being about $100 worth of dice that I ordered.
Oh yeah,
but it's worth it 100% because it's as a child I dreamed of that moment, and now all I can think about is the fact that I ordered a crap ton of D10s for 7th Sea. So when that puppy comes in, I will be running a game.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I want those things to hit the table, but there's so much more out there.
I recently had a dice revolution myself.
Okay.
Because I was toting around that old that old Captain Morgan bag of mine, full of just this mishmash of completely disparate dice sets that kind of get, so I've mentioned on the show that I am transgender, and so there's a lot of aspects of my life where I'm still kind of trying to figure things out about who I am and break away from some of my old ways that I kind of adapted to and trying to figure who's me underneath it all. And I had this moment where I started thinking to myself, I'm like, I should get some new dice, oh, these are sensible, these are nice. And then I was like, wait a minute, hold on a second. I'm a girl now.
Yeah.
I can be as damn pretty pink princess as I want.
Hell yeah.
So I bought what I refer to as my unicorn vomit dice.
They are unicorn vomit without a damn mind.
Hot pink with sparkles in them. And I love every little sparkle that is in them. They are my favorite things in the whole world. And a couple of my friends also bought me some new dice. You guys bought me some new dice.
We did.
Were purple with swirls in them of sparkles and stuff like that. Just great. Just absolutely great.
I love that about some of the new dice is we look for colors and styles, and then we'll see something that catches our eye. And back in the day, we would have to figure out, was this a Chessex set? Is it a specific color for Chessex? Can you still get it if you need to get more of those dice? Now you can find it. Yeah. You can find something that's pretty damn close.
It's just available.
Yeah.
And it's so great. There's so many different companies that are making, cool dice. So you mentioned yours are metal.
Yeah.
There's gemstone dice too, just like the D20s that were gifted to us today.
I actually have a micro gemstone set as well that I think is obsidian.
Very
They're
nice.
very small though, but
Yeah.
it's a tiny little dice set, like almost hard to read.
I bought your wife for her birthday some rose quartz dice.
She loves those.
That she loves.
She loves those dice. But you got to be careful with those because you can't just roll them on a hard surface.
Right, because they're a little brittle.
So that brings us right around to dice trays.
Dice trays.
Holy Lord! Like you've got the ones that snap together. I love that design. It's great because you can just lay it flat in your bag, your book bag, or inside your folder, and then put it together. And they're not small. Like you can get little ones, but you can also get ones that are practically the size of a keyboard or a tablet.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's impressive, but like I've seen so many. Like just recently, I was looking up dice trays and found a mahogany cut from a single log dice tray that's like $260. But it's hand carved. It's got like a tray for where the dice sit, and then this beautiful like inlaid tatami mat, so that your dice don't clink except against the sides.
Oh my goodness!
And then it's got little legs on it too, but it's all one piece of wood.
Right.
I mean, it's gorgeous. It's freaking gorgeous. But I mean, like
$260. But
whatever. I mean, if you that's how you roll.
If you're that into your hobby, man. I mean. So you and I were talking about this earlier. I'm like, what else do I spend extravagantly on? Literally nothing. Like occasionally video games.
It has changed. It really has changed.
This is my hobby sink.
Yeah, and I don't think there's
really
anything wrong with it.
Warhammer anymore.
Yeah.
So what else am I going to spend money on?
I mean, if you're a car person, you might have 2 or 3 cars.
Sure.
You might have kits that you change out of them. You might have lights. You might have whatever. And that can
getting
run you
painted or custom rims or whatever. Yeah.
That could cost you, and I'm going to say this lightly, between $20,000 and $60,000 depending on what you're throwing at it.
Sure.
So the idea of throwing $100 or $200 at gaming stuff on a crack, not a big of a deal.
If you've got it, you know?
Exactly.
And understandably, this day and age, not a lot of people do. But
speaking of bags, I ended up getting a Card King Pro from Vicky for
your
Christmas.
bag
Yes.
is impressive as hell. Okay, so first off, this thing is the size of like a small pillow.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, like a little sitting pillow. The thing probably is diameter
10 inches or so in diameter.
10 to 12.
10 to 12 in diameter. It's this big poofy sort of quilted bag, but you open it up with its sizable drawstring, and inside there are sewn like 8 different pouches.
Yeah, around the outside, and then there's a central one in the middle.
There's a central pouch, yeah.
And the walls are high enough that when you close the top, it basically closes up all of them so that they can't intermingle between them. But it's enough to hold 8 full dice sets and some in each one of the pockets. Like each pocket holds a double dice set. And then the center pocket easily holds 3 or 4.
Oh yeah,
easily. Because what I'm doing right now is it's holding all of my sets, and then my center dice pile is the extension. Like because I have a lot of D10s for 7C, so it actually holds my smaller dice bag and those dice in it, and it still packages up real nicely.
Yeah, absolutely.
I highly recommend them. You can find them if you go to Card King Pro. This is not like none. I will say none of the things that we have discussed thus far have been promoted to us.
Right.
These are things that we appreciate. I will say that the stuff that we got from
Elderwood Academy
is incredible. And
they did provide us those things.
They did,
especially we gave them away a lot of those away at the
I think everything almost.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I still have some stuff to ship, so I need to get in contact with 1 or 2 people still. But their stuff is incredible as well. I mean, it's the finer craft people pulling these things out of nowhere. Well, not out of nowhere, out of their minds into something that's cross-platform for them. So instead of just doing wood turning for goblets and cups and things like that, they're doing this kind of work for gaming, and it's amazing. And they're doing leather crafting and printing and etching, laser etching, and all these things that used to be almost unreachable by like the prosumer level is now 100% within grasp. You can have custom-made dice vault with your own logo on it, etched, and have it be quality, something that's going to last a long time. It's not just cheap plastic or something like that. Like even the 3D printed stuff you can do at home, you can do in a high resin plastic that's going to last.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it gets me thinking though, like because we talked about the necessity of the Crown Royal bag and stuff like that earlier. But, like, we spent the entire first 20 minutes of the show talking about our deprived childhoods. How, we had to, scramble for trying to find any gaming content we could, and how we didn't live in this golden age where all this stuff was readily available.
Yeah.
Do you think that now that these things are readily available, that the Crown Royal bag was more of a thing of necessity? That it was the best and finest mark of station during its time? Like, if you could get a Card King Pro bag nowadays, is the Crown Royal bag really necessary? Or is it a relic of the age from which it was born from?
I think it's a relic, but I think it's also, it surprisingly was quality. That was the thing about it, was it gave you something to carry things that were exceptionally important to you in a quality bag, honestly. And you knew... I'm trying to... Like, my brain goes to Trapper Keepers.
Okay.
In school.
Okay.
And some kids had them and some kids didn't.
Sure.
And some kids had, like, the really quality, like, nylon with Velcro that wrapped over itself and had the pencil pouches in it and all the extra folders and things. And then you just had those kids who had, like, the cheap, like, GoBots one. But, I mean, it had GoBots on it, or whatever. And it matched with your backpack and your lunchbox, that was equally as durable. But in a way, it was necessity. But at the same time, like, it was a mark of who you were. And carried with it, like, a part of pride. Like, this is my bag of dice. Some people have giant bags of dice. They love their giant bags of dice because they separate each one of their characters by their dice. And I think that kind of goes into it as well, is that some of it was also the discovery and finding it. And now that you have all these availability to, and accessibility to minis and going to things like Hero Forge, and having a mini printed and custom painted for you, even. You're getting closer and closer to crafting what you want, an experience that you want, but also living up to an expectation of a society of gamers.
Okay.
So, like, if I'm going to a convention as a brand new gamer, and maybe I signed up for a game, do I need to bring the right things to be able to enjoy that? Am I going to be looked down upon?
Oh, well, that's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Where are the new marks of station?
Yeah. Is there gatekeeping to the society?
Now, a kind of a follow-up question, though, would be history. Engaging in some discussions online about how like, queer history has been kind of passed down in an oral tradition, because in a lot of spaces are still, conservative enough where it's not being taught. So there's a need to preserve the things that have happened to and in the community and such like that through our own elders and whatnot. And it got me thinking about this exact same sort of thing in the gaming community.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I don't think it's, obviously not equal footing. I'm not trying to equivocate the two things.
No, but you can...
But from the standpoint of, like, us as elders in the community who did exist in a time where you had to kind of, like, really scramble to find the books, and you didn't have the internet. You didn't have, like, a wealth of gaming stores. You didn't have Etsy. You didn't have Amazon.
No, college campuses were pretty much wherever you would find it at the time.
But you think, like, keeping the history of the Crown Royal bag is a rite of passage.
Yeah.
Do you think that's part of, like, gaming culture that should be passed down to a newer generation, just like we teach them the gazebo story and stuff like that?
100%. 100%. I would still to this day say that if you're going to, like, if it was me and my group, and I've done it, like, if there's a new person coming in my group, I will get them a Crown Royal bag.
Oh, yeah.
Because it is a rite of passage. It's an ownership. It's a simple gift, but it's a symbol of starting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's to clarify too. When we were talking about our contributor Hulavu earlier, we were kind of giving him a hard time about not having a dice bag and stuff. But I want to point out it was all friendly,
100%,
and that it's our insistence upon the Crown Royal bag simply comes from the fact of like we want to welcome you to the community, and that's how it's done.
Yeah,
congratulations, welcome to gaming. Here's your Crown Royal bag. It's almost standard issue.
Yeah, and
it's your rite of passage.
In some ways, like here's your first set of dice. Yeah, and it's a hand-me-down dice set.
It is. It's like I almost liken it to like a father teaching his son to shave.
Yeah.
Or mother teaching her daughter to walk in heels.
Or I've seen it in the skateboarding community, like your first skateboard,
your first deck. Yeah.
Yeah. You're the first time you drop in. If you're doing that kind of stuff, there's just something about the community helping you with your first things, and those first things becoming honorific. That it's a station point. And I think almost all kinds of groups have that, where your first stuff is kind of hand-me-down stuff and is a gift to show you that you are new. Mm-hmm. And that this is us accepting you by giving you our something old, something borrowed, kind of stuff.
Right.
And I think there's beauty in that. There's a simplistic beauty in that.
I think there is. I love the idea of a culture passing down its passing down its story, its history, its traditions, and the little cultural touch points in there.
Yeah.
From one generation to the next. I think it's actually beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Dice towers. How do you feel about them?
Oh Lord.
Have you ever used one?
No.
Neither have I.
I akin it to Mousetrap, the game.
Yeah. A little bit. Like, wow, you went through all that and took up that space on the table to roll your dice.
But at the same,
you can do that with your hand, right?
But at the same time, I see it as two different things. I see it, number one, as a gaming aid.
Yeah.
For individuals who need it.
Sure.
I mean, I'm sorry, not everyone has a great roll. I personally shoot craps. I can throw dice.
Right. Yeah.
I've done that in my life, and but there are people who would prefer to have that happen in a much closed area, or perhaps don't have either the dexterity or tactile skills to be able to do it, and I think there's a place for it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think there's a beauty to them. I've seen some amazing ones.
Oh, there are some amazing ones, yeah.
But
I was watching Dimension 20 with Brendan Lee Mulligan as the storyteller for that, and it's just an absolutely delightful set of stories that Brendan Lee Mulligan tells.
Yeah.
For most rolls, everybody just kind of rolls, on the table in front of them and whatnot. But for really seriously epic, like game-changing rolls, like, okay, I have levied the ultimate weapon at the villain, and I am going to pull the trigger. Okay, it could all come down to this roll, and he has this like elaborate like cave with like fangs for stalactites sort of thing, dice roller or dice tower that he pulls out specifically for that, and you roll in the dice tower.
All right, I could see that. Along that same thing, dice jails.
Dice jails are funny to me. They're a gimmick. Like, obviously, they don't serve any purpose other than to punish the luck on your dice.
The random factor.
How many of us have rolled that like third one of the night on our D20 and then just pitched the damn thing across the room? I
mean, you warm up your dice too.
And the cat sees the new toy and bats it underneath the sofa or the refrigerator. And your host says, "Oh, it's gone now," and you go, "That's okay. It was dead to me anyway."
That's right.
And a dice jail just streamlines that process for you.
That is true. That is true. And everybody has their like return to society moments with their dice where they put them away, and then after a fortnight in a full moon, based on a full moon, it may be.
We are such superstitious creatures. Like,
it is true.
If there's one thing us and the sports people can agree on, it's
the superstitions.
It's the superstitions.
Yeah, it's true.
Hulavu in the live chat actually says, FYI, I understood that it was just a joke and took no offense. So
good,
okay, cool.
Good.
We're all good. How would you pass down the culture when so much of it is done virtually? That's probably why I never got a Crown Royal bag. He's saying, since all my D&D community is virtual, and that's actually an excellent point. Like, we're kind of living in a virtual age, and of course for the last year, all of us have been gaming online.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say that at a certain point, there are still connections that get made, and it's different in that sense. Like maybe it's a matter of something else you were gifted that you're not recognizing, or that the gift is virtual in itself, like being gifted digital books or access to something, or subscription to something, or maps or whatever. There usually is a handoff within a society, and even in this, and I feel like I need to fill that gap now by shipping him a Crown Royal bag of some kind. I may have to message him after this, because I think it's necessary that the culture does that. But in a digital way, I would still say that it would have to be some of the same earmarks, like gifting someone a start point.
Yeah,
whether it's a book. Whether it's something like, hey, I don't have I want to be able to play 5th edition with you guys, but I don't have a book. You're like, okay, I may or may not have a PDF that you can look at.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But now it's easier because you go to D&D and Beyond, add them to the campaign, and they have access to the books.
Yeah,
I 100% think that's amazing. That's amazing. But there are a lot of systems that don't have that. But there's a lot of systems that, it's I picked it up for you at Drive-Thru RPG. You can go pick it up here. Oh,
sure,
great. That's wonderful.
And I mean, I don't think that having, digital gaming necessarily precludes having some physical stuff. I mean, it may not contribute as much, but I mean, even if you're just running a Roll20 campaign and you have a favorite character, I mean, wouldn't it be cool to have a mini of that character? Whether you never put it in a game. Yeah.
Yeah.
But just having it sitting up on your hutch, just knowing that is your, your character.
Yeah.
I think there's still a place for physical trappings.
All right, one other thing that I wanted to get into tonight.
Yeah.
Tables. This came out of nowhere and now is amazing. I mean, every once in a while I try and catch up with a Wormwood group. Holy crap, have they gone crazy.
Oh, man.
I watch their videos and I'm just like, these guys are literally living the La Vida Loca of gaming and just doing crazy shit and getting away with it.
Like some people like going to like the Porsche dealership and just browsing. Like they know they don't have the $200,000 or whatever a Porsche runs, you know, to buy one. But they just want to feel like they're a high roller for a second, so they go and they stroll the lot.
Yeah.
And I think some of the Wormwood tables and stuff like that, the elaborate gaming tables that are coming out nowadays are where I do that.
Wormwood, Rathskeller, Uniquely Geek, board game tables. I actually went onto their site today just to see where the numbers were at for an octagonal table. And it was almost $4,000 what I was looking at.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
But at the same time, I'm like, kind of worth it.
Yeah, like
for me, it would be kind of worth it because, especially with the much time I spend at it.
And this is where we got in the discussion of hobby spending. It's like there are places where you're gonna put your money and it's gonna sound frivolous, but like you got to make that big purchase for yourself, just so you can have that one thing because it's the thing that you love.
It's where you're sitting. It's what you're doing.
It's where your heart is. I mean, you and I started this podcast because we've been loving role playing games for 25 years each.
Plus.
Yeah. And this is what we spend all of our time on. This is what we devote 60% of our thought cycles to. And it's never going to go away for us. We have discussions about how when we're old and retired, and we all create a little retirement commune for ourselves. And
we're
stuff
still
like
going to be gaming.
We're still going to be gaming. Yep. Until we're too old to do so.
Yep.
And even then. We're gonna try. And so, when you contextualize it like that, like $4,000 for a custom gaming table, starts to not sound like a bad investment.
No, but it's when you get to $9,000 with the power lift center that can bring your mini up. I mean, that's
then you're like, all right, calm down.
Oh man.
Knox asks, do you have any gaming tattoos? I don't have any tattoos.
I have none. I've looked at a few, but not gaming related.
No. My if I got any, I don't know that they would be gaming related right away. But I understand once you start getting tattoos, you can't stop. So, my second or third one will probably be gaming related.
My first one definitely, like, if we ever get into the tattoo discussion, I've got a big one that I've been working on, but it's like 10 years now.
My first tattoo I already have picked out. It's going to be the Japanese kanji for Ryoto Tsukai.
Okay.
Which means dual wielding. Nice. In Japanese, it is slang for bisexual.
Oh, nice. So Overwatch had asked this question: what item do you really want for your table, but either doesn't exist or is too rare, expensive, or otherwise unobtainable?
Okay, so... No, I gave this one some thought.
We only got a few minutes here. You got this.
I gave this one some thought. Okay. All right. So my dream gaming peripheral is an augmented reality setup.
All right. I love this.
Okay, so you've got like your minis out on the table, right?
Sure.
But it's an augmented reality. So when you look at your miniature... in AR, so like if you're wearing AR glasses or of some sort, it is displayed to you a floating like stat block.
Oh, nice.
That you can see all this stuff, kind of like to give you the visual and anyone else who's seen the game, The Division.
Yeah.
You know, where you look at things and you kind of get this overlay on things that just kind of floats in midair above them. I would love to see that.
Okay.
I would love to be able to look at the orc miniature and see that it only has 7 of its 12 hit points left, floating above it in space.
Yeah, I would...
If you cast Fireball, you actually see the Fireball happen, but it's all physical miniatures.
Yeah, I would like to see I'd like to see a table like that. I mean, I'd even be fine with doing it with just a screen that tracked where the minis went, which you can do these days. It's just challenging to get all that right with, without a fully flushed out interface, pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say at this point in time, I would want an advanced gaming table that I could play with my friends on and be able to map things and move minis around and have that capability. And it's not far out of reach, really. It's just time and money, and getting back to physical gaming. So yeah, I think that's where mine would sit.
Okay.
So Knox's final question here was, you never really think about the safety when you think about playing games with your friends, but sometimes things happen by accident. Can we talk a bit about some of the safety tools like X cards and consent flowers? Actually didn't know about these and beyond the X card. What is your experience with these?
So I'm going to say, actually, I don't, believe it or not, have as big of an advocate of these things as I am. Don't have a lot of actual play experience with them. Now, mind you, I attribute that to having a consistent gaming group of like the same 6 people for the last at least decade.
Right.
I've had a few other gaming interactions with other people, but like my quote unquote group with a capital G has been you guys.
Yeah.
And so we've more or less got each other figured out, and so I think things like consent and X cards and stuff like that aren't as big of an issue with us, because we have made open communication about things such a big part of our friendships and a big part of our lives. But that's not to say that having something like an X card, actually implementing it would not be a great idea. Even when we know each other as well as we do.
Right.
I think about as close as I came is we talked. We're currently doing a role playing game inside of Ark.
Yes.
That you are running.
Yes. And
we issued flare guns to everybody.
Yep.
With a special skin on them that made them red, white, and blue fireworks, so they wouldn't be mistaken for a normal flare gun.
Right.
And those are our X cards.
Yep.
If anybody fires a firework flare, we're done.
Yep. We're just processing it right there. For me, what's funny is this brought out some 2 things for me. One, I've only been in one game when an X card was thrown, and it was very much a good idea. Consent flowers, which is interesting. That triggered a memory for me of my first LARPing of Vampire the Masquerade.
Okay.
The group had a contact rule. There was no physical contact between players unless you were wearing it was like this like silver thing.
Okay.
Like a lapel pin, basically.
Sure.
And you had to check with the storyteller and make sure you were over 18. But if you were over 18 and you accepted this pin, basically it allowed for contact. And you could authorize your level of contact.
Sure.
And I thought that was a neat thing then to be able to allow people to, like, poke people in the chest or have no assault. Obviously, laws still apply.
Grab them by the arm.
Exactly. Or you'd have, your toreadors or things like that doing, like, their wiles to try and, draw your attention and things like that. So it was always interesting to see how that worked out, and you could tell people looked for it.
Yeah.
And it kept that safety and that security of knowing, like, hey, I'm okay with this. You're not, so therefore I'm not going to invade that space. I will get within a realm of it as much as I can in role-playing, but stay away from that availability. But that consent also extended to the fact that you were unavailable for certain non-contact things as well. Because it often meant that you were too young.
Yeah.
So it changed role-playing as well with the way people were interacting with those people, but never changed the game, which was neat. It was just different. And then we both were in a LARP that required non-com sessions.
With the non-com sessions. I totally forgot about that until literally just now.
Yep.
There was a special braided sash that you would wear that designated you as a non-combatant. And
for any number of reasons.
So if you ever got within 5 feet of combat, essentially, first off, it was illegal to hit these people in any way whatsoever, even gently, to make contact with a weapon. Basically you would, like, kind of look at the person and be like, I attack you. And they fall down. Like, that's it. Like, that's how you engaged in combat with them was... A weapon does not go
very close to the paintball of I'm 5 feet away from you and I go bang.
Bang.
Yeah.
Yep.
You don't want me to shoot you.
Right. Because that's going to be a welt you will not forget.
So yeah, I think experience-wise they've been pretty good when they've been thought out.
Yeah. Yeah.
When people implement them, they've always turned out well.
It's honestly it's a big honor system. People have to agree to consent to or agree to follow those rules, not consent to them, but like to follow those rules. But I think in my experience, most people did. Like, I don't ever remember anybody at our LARP hitting a non-com.
No, I've had people who should have been wearing them not wearing them. But...
Yeah. But like anybody who was wearing them, I don't ever remember there being an incident where anybody got hit.
No.
And if there was, I'm sure it was I did not see the non-com sash. Like, combat stops. I'm so sorry.
Because they were maybe it was cold and they were wearing a cloak over them and you didn't see it. Yeah.
And like there was instant recognition of a fault and it was handled.
Yeah.
So Knox actually follows up in the live chat. He says, so certain tools are icebreaker tools that become redundant over time. I don't think that's necessarily true.
No.
Consent is never anything that goes away over time. The only reason I don't go out of my way to, implement those sort of things is because I feel comfortable enough that I know my players and know their boundaries at this point.
And when you haven't, or it's with something that you've questioned, you've asked.
We've
kids.
Asked, yeah.
You were at, are you going to be comfortable if I bring kids into a combat situation where, like, I think we're all adult enough right now in the room to be okay with this. I think because you don't know where their emotional states are week to week, month to month, what could trigger something.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I have another one player who has a severe hydrophobia.
Yes.
And so I actually had a discussion with him on the side as well of like, okay, so where, how bad are we talking here? What are my boundaries? What would be bad for you if I included it in the game?
Yeah.
And he spelled it out for me.
Yeah.
So I'm aware, and basically I had to agree that his character would never suffer drowning.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay to put water, but his character will never be able to drown.
Yep.
Okay, that's cool. I don't need your character to drown as a story element. Like, that's not a thing that's required for my story. So cool. Yep. You have my word. If there is ever water as an environmental hazard or whatever, it will never involve your death.
Nor will we discuss how that's going.
Exactly.
And
it
you
will
fell overboard.
It will not be described.
The morning you wake on the beach and feel the dusty sand still brushing off your face. Okay, you don't know what happened in between? That's perfectly fine.
Yep. So, it's mostly about just having adult conversations. But I think, unless you do have those things, and maybe in addition to those things, I think every group has to find their own rhythm and stuff like that and find what works for them. But I fully advocate, even seasoned groups using these sort of things.
And rediscussing it. I think even in my game, I had somebody bring up to me in the Arc LARP, like, hey, that was a kind of heavy death sequence that you went over, and we have a bunch of people who just recently dealt with death.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to check in with them? And I'm like, actually, I did, and I think everything's going okay. So that's why I was okay going ahead with it. So I think we were able to progress through it relatively well. And they're okay. So the check back still happens. It's not a redundancy thing. It's not that everyone just accepts that they know about these cards thing. It is good to remind.
Yeah,
it is good to
absolutely.
remember that you have that, because fears slip in like, oh God, I'm having this bad time and I don't know if I'm going to be okay with stepping in the situation. You don't have to talk about it. If you're not comfortable, you have those tools still available to you.
I mean, I would like to know what boundary was crossed so that I can make sure I don't cross it in the future. But like, when you are in the depth of a triggering situation, like, we don't need to talk about it right then. Like,
no, that's the worst time to talk about it.
You just
drop the X card.
Get yourself out of the situation. We will handle it later.
That's right. There doesn't need to be a defensive moment. It doesn't need to trigger anything for anyone, and people can just move on.
Mm-hmm.
So... Oh, good questions.
Excellent questions, yeah.
Yeah, today was good. We've got a year worth of stuff ahead of us. We were taking a look at what our next shows are going to be like, and I think we've got some good stuff coming up that I'm very much looking forward to. I was looking back at the list that we came up with earlier today of some of the newer stuff, and I think we've got a lot to talk about.
I think there's we're gonna take some opportunities in 2021 to kind of get back to some of the basics. I know some of the stuff that we talk about is a little high concept sometimes with the world building and encounter design and stuff like that. But we want to make sure that the intro of every show, we say whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game up. And I think sometimes we get away from the new storytellers. Yeah. And I want to get back to that. So we've got a few shows slated in our upcoming schedule for, just kind of storytelling 101. Yeah. How to DM.
Yeah. How to get, like, I am brand new. What I would like to run a game for my friends. What do I do day one?
Yeah. And how do I put a story together, sort of things like that. Which I think is, and it's really good for even the seasoned veterans to get back to the basics, because I'll tell you, after all this time, you sometimes you get in your own head. Yeah, you fall into your own habits and your own patterns and your own cycles, and you lose sight of the fundamentals.
Well, not only that, but sometimes when you're literally laying out the ideas of a game, like, you could be knee deep in it and suddenly just lose ground, like I did. Like I had to come up with, like, a couple of scenes that I was totally unprepared for. I was like, oh God, where is this going to go? Because this is like a side quest now. And I'm like, okay, well, I know what it was, so where can I go from there? And so I just had to find a muse angle to hit. And sometimes that's what it takes, is finding which avenue, whether I'm coming from the world side in, whether I'm coming from a character idea in, whether I'm coming from who's existing there, and that's going to build me my idea tree. All of those are different ways of attacking the loss of creativity or the loss of that moment of block. I think one of the best things that I heard was Adam Savage was doing a piece, and he couldn't think of how to paint it. It was an art piece, and he's like, I had no idea what color it needed to be. So I had to find one thing that I could do, and I could find the one thing was I knew what I didn't want it to be. So I painted it that, and that told me what color it needed to be.
Oh, jeez.
So sometimes the angle is the one that you don't want to take. You just start writing in that direction, and then you go, oh, well, that's not what I want it to be. Then
whoa, this sucks. It would be so much better if oh, I see.
and then the thing comes out of it. And so I think that's wonderful.
So next week's topic, we're going to have another System Spotlight. It's the second Wednesday of the month, so we always do System Spotlights then. We're going to be actually talking about one of my favorites, Warrior, Rogue, and Mage.
Yep, WRN.
Dread, and other small rules-light systems.
Yes.
You can find us up on Twitter at @ST_Conclave, on Instagram at @ST_Conclave. You can listen to us live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave, and join our Discord. You can find that link up on our Twitter quite often, and on our website, storytellerconclave.com.
We'd like to thank our Patreon members, especially our name members, Knox in the Box, Sam, the Arcane Asylum, and Sparkle Motion. Thank you so much. It helps every week and keeps this show on its feet. If you were listening live, our pre-show music is by Arcane Anthems. You can find that at patreon.com/arcaneanthems. Our intro music is Beyond the Warriors by Guy Frog. You can find that at guyfrogmusic.weebly.com. And our outro music, Only Our Footprints in the Sand by Midair Machine. You can find that at soundcloud.com/midairmachine/tracks.
And a big shout out, as always, to our families, Vicky and Sean. Thank you so much for supporting and loving us. All of our friends who have sat with us at our tables and given us these great stories to share with you over the years, and every single one of you, our listeners. We love you so much.
Love you.
Good night.
Good night.